Hey everybody, Nate Spees with Greg Gibson, and we are really excited to come to you with another episode of the Adventurous CMO, and we are here with Chris Pattitoni. I was super excited about today. To jump in, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, and let's start there.
Yeah, so Chris Pattitoni, I lead 26 studios at Zebra Technologies. We're the in-house brand and creative agency with Zebra. If you don't know who Zebra is, we've been in business for 50 plus years. We're everywhere. It's one of those logos that you really, until you see the logo, you don't know we're there. We're sort of hiding in plain sight. But once you do see the logo, as I think you guys can attest, then you see it everywhere, right? So
for sure.
we build products and software and solutions for the front line of business. We do some really cool things with the NFL, player tracking. So as we're putting RFIDs on different players and shoulder pads and tracking their movements, and the NFL, the teams are using that data to quantify performance. So some really cool stuff that I think a lot of people really don't know about, but we're hoping to change that in the next few years.
It's awesome. I can attest to, it's been our privilege to collaborate with you and the in-house agency over the last couple of years. And but I remember when we started learning about Zebra being like, I remember in our first conversation, you were like, hey, we're everywhere.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely one of those brands that once you know where their solutions are at, you cannot unsee Zebra almost everywhere you go, from your shopping experiences in retail to everything else. Like if you get a package at your house, more than likely it's been touched by some sort of Zebra experience on the way there. So it's super fun to have gotten to know the Zebra brand over the last couple of years.
For sure. I just had that conversation yesterday. Someone was asking me, where are they at? And I started listing off the names, and they're like, oh, no way. Yeah. We had a Zebra in the Wild challenge as a team when we first started collaborating, where, take a picture wherever you see Zebra. And sure enough, like, it's from the thrift store down the street to Target to FedEx, Prime, you name it. It's awesome.
Tell us a little bit about, so you've worked in the brand space and in the marketing space for a while now. Tell us a little bit about your career journey. How did you get to where you are today? And what has been the most interesting thing that if you've got a learning or takeaway about what has both shifted and also what has been kind of the constant for you as you've seen your career shift over the years? Yeah,
so I think like a lot of people, my career has taken its twists and turns. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, so the Motor City. Just like, most young men grow up in West Virginia and they're ultimately going to work in the coal mines, right? Like when you're in Metro Detroit, you're ultimately going to go and work for the big three, one of the big three. So my dad worked for General Motors for 35 years. That's where I started my career. My story goes all the way back to when my mom was cleaning. She was a cleaning lady, and she would clean these engineering offices. And I'd walk in, and I'd see these like super beautiful, like futuristic concept cars as like a 9-year-old. Because I'd go to work with her, because it's the only time that I really ever spend time with my mom outside of like in the morning, right? So I'd go to these office buildings, and I'd clean out trash and mop the floors and do all that stuff. But in between, there'd be like these beautiful concept cars, and they're like enormous. They take up the entire wall. And I just always thought, man, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. I don't know what that is, but I want to do it. And so I knew I didn't want to do what my dad did, which he was a tool and die maker, and he'd come home and he was blue collar. But I knew I needed to do something in the automotive industry. So I went to work as a designer, and I did that for a number of years, and I loved it. So that's sort of my true passion. And then one of the things my dad would always tell me is like, hey, automotive industry, when it's good, it's really good. But when it's bad, it's really, really bad. And this was around like mid 2005 or so. Automotive industry really started going downhill. Of course, Obama had to come in and save the automotive industry. And my wife and I had just been married, and we're thinking about kids, and things were getting rough. And so I made the change, and I got into marketing. That's even a longer story. I won't get into that, but fell in love with branding. And it was sort of the perfect marriage of like doing something within sort of the marketing space, but also trying to create something that provokes emotion and feeling in people, which I think design naturally does. And so yeah, long story longer, spent a number of years at Siemens, big German conglomerate, and made my way to Zebra, like I said, about 4.5 years ago, leading the brand there. That's something that I, of course, always wanted to do, is sort of lead my own brand, and we're doing that. Answer your second question about how things are shifting. It's kind of interesting. I think when I first started getting into brand work, it was sort of in that traditional sense of like the brand police, right? Like checking the logo placement and do we have the right colors and those types of things. And I just felt like there's more to this than that. There's got to be more, because I'm a true believer, like brand touches everything, everywhere, in every organization. And it's going to be powerful when everyone understands the importance and the impact of a great brand. I think there's obviously, and you guys know this, working with the brands that you do, having a strong brand means having a strong business. I mean, there's a direct correlation. It's not about marketing. It's not about the logo. It's not about type, font, right? Like Marty Neumeier will tell you, like, it's not about those things. It's about the gut feeling people have when they think about your brand. But it's all those other things that you have to do in order to give them that gut feeling. So to me, that's, I think, how things have shifted, I think, within the branding space in the last 10, 12-ish years, is like, it's not just about the traditional sense of branding and where's the logo and, you know, make the logo bigger, right? Like that type of thing. It's like, how do you drive strategy from a brand point of view into an organization? I know we worked with you guys, obviously, and trying to tie the corporate strategy to the brand strategy and then bringing that brand strategy to life. That's, to me, where sort of the magic happens. And I think that's sort of what's changed over the last 10 years, right? Is like more and more, I think, branding experts get that.
For sure, and we've seen it over the last 10 plus years working with organizations like yours, and I feel like having the benefit of also seeing, you know, for the people who've seen the rebrand internally at Zebra, it's not just, you know, driving the strategy externally, it's driving for the people that work there, giving them that sense of pride, that sense of ownership, that sense of belonging and purpose, so that you can have that business impact. Because at the end of the day, the employees are driving a lot of the success of whether or not that rebrand or brand is going to stick.
The great mobilizer of brand transformation is often your ability to really generate momentum internally before you ever start to market externally. And I think oftentimes we overemphasize brand transformation as a campaign and like external marketing effort and under leverage the big opportunity, which is how do you get your organization to be raving fans around the mission and vision component of what the brand transformation is generally driving. Because ultimately it's generally driving towards and for, you know, it's on mission for something.
Right.
And when you can really do that well, I think that's really the secret sauce of the organizations that get it right, do that, and the activation of your marketing and your kind of marketing enterprise to do that. And that's the same whether you have 20 employees or you have 20,000 employees. The same strategic kind of underpinnings exist in both places, and that's why, you know, I think we've seen the organizations that do it the best are the ones that have really measured and been intentional about ensuring that both their teams and their marketing, are coinciding and coexisting with the launch.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I mean, we were very intentional when we first started this 2 years ago. It doesn't go anywhere if it's just a marketing thing, right? Like, to your point. So we actually baked into the timeline, like there has to be a good 6 months of enablement. And it's not just like, hey, everybody, there's new guidelines. If you can go and check them out sometime, that would be great. It's like, okay, how do we create a series of interesting sort of, we're calling them training. Nobody likes to take training, but it's sort of just these enablement sessions done in different ways. It's sort of like we're marketing to the internal organization. Like, this is really great. You need to pay attention to this. This has something to do with your job. We're trying to make it job specific as much as we can. We have 10,000 employees at Zebra, so it's somewhat difficult. But I think in terms of like at least sales, and we have a huge partner community, obviously the rest of the marketing organization, the BUs, the product teams, that's kind of the core audience. And we've done a lot of great work sort of behind the scenes of saying, this is why it's important to you, this is why it's important to you, and those things maybe are different. But it gives people the sense of like, okay, I get that. It is important to me, and I understand that now. And it's just, in the true sense of the word, you're enabling them to sort of take that baton as a brand team to say, okay, it's yours now. You have to sort of own this and be responsible for it. I think if you get the enablement part right, it goes a long way. Versus, like I said, there's guidelines, and yeah, we've updated colors.
Right.
That's going to fall flat.
Yeah, not only that, but you had a cohort of people from all levels of seniority, department, geography that you kind of bringing along the journey, getting their input, surveying, getting their perspective to help shape the work, help shape the direction. I thought that was really intentional, powerful, something that we found valuable coming into the brand, and learning it, hearing what these people have to say. What does success look like? How is this going to be beneficial to them? And then being able to talk to those people and actually hear what they think about the ideas.
Yeah, that was so important for us, just because I think it's easy, and again, you guys probably know this better than anyone, it's easy to like lock yourself into a room with a bunch of creatives and strategists and say like, okay, let's just build something, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you got to do a little bit of that. But again, for me, it's about making people feel like it's not mine. As this person that leads brand at Zebra, the brand is not mine, it's everybody's. And the best way to do that is for me to sit down and talk to people and listen to them and ask them, what do you think about, how do you think about the brand? How do you think about where you work? What makes you proud about working here? And I think it's super easy, again, for maybe a company, and you guys were great about this. You didn't come in and say, okay, well, yeah, let's just kind of start from scratch and we'll create this really cool visual. And it was like, no, like what do your customers expect from you, right? Like, how do you think you should show up? How do you think they expect you to show up? And there's sort of this Venn diagram between all those things, the conversations we were having, bringing you guys in, what we wanted to do as a brand team, and where is that sort of middle where everything was crossing over? And that's, I think, where we ultimately landed.
Yeah. I often hear, and we've kind of crystallized this idea that like the most interesting place you can be is that intersection of the brands world and the real world. And I feel like where we landed with the story, with Better Every Day, with the visual identity, is this really interesting kind of intersection of everything that we heard internally, the brand's world, the products and the company's culture and all of those things, and then the real world of all the frontline workers that you enable, and that untold story of how Zebra actually shows up in all those places around the world. And like, you can own that kind of intersection of those stories. And I love, like, one of my favorite moments was Rob saying in one of our final presentations, like, this feels like a company I'm excited to work at. Like, I'm really, I'm excited to get this out into the world because this feels like what we're trying to build. And so,
Rob's made the remark a couple of times, Rob Armstrong, our CMO, but he's made the remark a couple of times, like he's presented to like the entire organization, and at the end he said a few times like, now we feel like a tech company, right? Like, and no one laughed. It was like, yeah, it does feel like we're a tech company now. And that's part of the excitement too, is like, we're almost like turning a corner, and this is like truly a new chapter for Zebra that we're embarking on. And that's so wild to think about.
I'd love to use that as a jumping off point to a question that I have for you around maybe just your thoughts on brand differentiation. Because I think that there's a really interesting moment, especially now. I mean, you guys are going through that specific engagement of going, hey, we want to ensure that in our categories and where we show up, we're differentiated. We're also more aligned to the vision of the organization and where it's going. But we're at a really interesting cultural moment of brands, especially in the more enterprise space, really wrestling with how do we stand out and also stay true to who we are as an organization in a land where innovation's happening faster and faster. We've got all in the world of AI and all these things we're trying. everyone's trying to draft where innovation is going while simultaneously being differentiated. I'm curious your perspective on how does Zebra show up, and your perspective too personally around how do brands remain competitive and differentiated and true to who they are?
That's a loaded question, but it's a great one. So I am a firm believer that differentiator is the ultimate thing that all brands are striving for, right? Like you said, there's sort of how brands are expected to look and act, and more times than not, especially I think in the B2B space, most people would think about like a technology or technologies company as like one and the same. They're probably like, you take IBM or Honeywell, right? Like all these different brands, Siemens, et cetera. And I think for us specifically, because I'll admit, like 2 years ago, I probably didn't know what our differentiator was from a lot of our competitors. Especially when you just look at the product line, right? Like we always talk about within Zebra, our products are of the highest quality. Like we know that, but probably a lot of people don't. So we have to educate them on those types of things. But I kept going back to this thing with the team of, in the sea of sameness, everyone drowns, right? So if there's nothing else that we accomplish, it is that we are going to look, sound, act different than everybody else. So we went through and on top of speaking to the number of employees that we did, we actually did a bunch of research as well on our competitors. And we put together, I mean, it's a book, I swear it's at least an inch thick, of all of our competitors and how they sounded, what they looked like, and we did the work. And because we did the work, again, it was sort of like, okay, we now know, and we've created mood boards, and we said, all right, we now know what they look like and what they sound like, what they act like, how the words they're using. And when working with you guys, it was like, okay, we know what we don't want to do, so what does that leave us with? We do make our customers incrementally better, and it's this sort of idea that you can buy our technology on day 2, there's an ROI immediately. So there's sort of this day-by-day sort of ROI that compounds on itself, and it's not sort of like, okay, engage with us, we'll sell you a bunch of services, and in 2 years from now, there'll be this huge transformational moment. You'll see it. Right. And that's kind of where, we started talking to you guys about that, and where, like you said, Greg, Better Every Day kind of came about. And that's our story, right? Like that's our story. That's what makes us different. But it took us, again, kind of going, okay, we don't want to be that, but we got to do some work to figure out like who we are and what makes us unique, and really lean as heavily into that as we possibly could. And I think we did that.
Yeah, it's not just be different or die, it's be distinct. And like being distinct means being yourself. And I think you were able to lean into a really emotional story, but one that was grounded in like how you're actually different from a customer's point of view. And we brought that to life through a strong platform line, and that then means something, and that people can make their own. And I think you have this ability to actually change people's perspective on what is like the largest section of workers in the world, the largest contributor from a like single part of the economy to global GDP. Like it's a really big story. So this idea that you're committed to making all those experiences better every day through innovation, through seamlessness. It's awesome. I love it.
I think, one of the other things too about talking about sort of the internal versus external is that message works for both audiences as well, right? Like we can talk about our internal comms team, and Zebra is a great place to work. We have a great culture. And I think, when we were talking with the internal comms team about this idea, they were all about it. They're like, oh, that's fantastic. I think we've tried in some way, shape, or form to capture that essence previously, but that it was, and it's what's so funny about Better Every Day is it's so simple. And I think there was some people initially that were like, that doesn't speak to me, that doesn't pull me forward, it doesn't grab me. And I would always sort of push back and say, well, that's the beauty of it. It's so easy to understand. It's translatable in other languages. Internally, we can use it. Externally, why have a different message for your internal employees as your external audience? The same reason why people work for you, or the same reason why people partner with you in the business world. So it's simple, but to all the points you said, I mean, it works. It's ridiculously easy to understand, and it's so flexible and can move in different ways. So
yeah, I think one of the things that we've learned over the years is it's always our responsibility to be able to connect that story. I think if you looked at the brand today, when we're recording this today, and the brand, when we're releasing this, and we just showed you, people the final version, they would have said no.
Agreed.
It's so drastic when you really think about it, right? Yeah. But when you go on the journey, like an engineered journey that we've purposefully created and crafted to take people through the story of the corporate strategy, through the brand strategy, making the brand strategy make sense in the context of where the brand needed to go, and then taking people on the journey of the creative. Through time, it makes sense as you start to unpack everything, and then it doesn't seem so drastic. It doesn't seem like, whoa, we woke up one day and here we are. We're completely different. Yeah. Everyone's gone on that journey, and I think we've always taken that as our responsibility to help guide, you and your team guide everyone through that process. I think one thing that we love collaborating with internal teams is that collaboration is so great for us. It's such a benefit to be able to have those internal champions. We'd love to hear from you, what is it like on your side? You work with a ton of different partners, including us, but how do you think about the role of agency, the role of your team, and that collaboration?
Yeah, well, I think that's the word, right, is collaboration. So as an internal agency, there are things that I think, do really, really well. And there's some areas that we just work sort of gapped, right? And I think I probably speak for a lot of agencies when I say that. But for us, it was important that we brought in an agency like you guys who, like you said, would collaborate and partner versus want to come in and take over. So the 26 studios within Zebra, we've scaled that team. We have a lot of great talent, but we lacked some of the experience that obviously you guys brought to the table. I think, we work with a number of different agencies globally, but it's sort of like a team, right? Every player plays a role on the team, and certainly there's overlap, but there's some very specific things that the agencies that we've brought in can do that are just obviously better than we can do, and vice versa. I think you guys were probably a little bit surprised when you first came in and started working with us that. I'm sure you probably thought on some level, well, maybe we're going to have to come in and, we'll hold their hand initially, but they might go away or have to kind of go back to the work, and we're going to have to take this on ourselves. And I think it's just sort of a testament to both teams that we continued to sort of push each other and push back against each other at times. And I think that's just a healthy partnership. Yep. Think about it like your significant other or your spouse, right? You don't want somebody just sitting there always saying yes or no. It's a healthy debate at times of what do we want for dinner tonight, right? And I probably have that conversation way more than I'd like. But I think that's sort of the goal, right? Between working with an internal agency and outside agency is how do we complement each other? How do we continue to work with one another? How do we push one another to get better? And we had some, I wouldn't call it super strenuous conversations, but there were times when we pushed back, that's wrong, right? I don't think we should be doing that, and that's healthy. And again, I think that's how we got to where we were. If you guys just came in and just kind of did your thing, I'm sure it would be great. Or if you guys came in and just kind of let us do our thing, I'm sure it would have been great as well. But I'm super happy with where we landed, and I think it was just sort of that partnership and that relationship that was built.
I think you nailed it. I mean, I think brand transformation is better when the organization is involved in the process. And when I say that, it's not going to a workshop and then being like, all right, agency
Got
partner, see ya. Like,
Told you everything you
need to know. You do it. Like, I think to that point, I think the brand transformation is always better when there's partnership and there's collaboration that has continuity from start to finish, not kind of just like in and then out, and then, teams, agency starts building. And the reason for that goes back to the second half of what you said, which is I don't think there's any great creative output without conflict. Conflict is a important part of getting to ideas and outcomes that are not kind of your first order of thinking, right? Like, because I think oftentimes, like, if you get through a project and there's been like, it's seamless and you like, are like, hey, there's never any pushback. Number one, probably not being bold enough. Number two, probably not actually thinking deep enough about what you're doing. And number three, we talk like at Grizzly about wanting, it's like with a name like Grizzly, it's like we want to help organizations be a force of nature. Like you can't do that unless you're trying to push, like you're trying to lead people towards big ideas. And I think the 26 and Grizzly teams together really were like intentional about saying like, let's push each other to get to the best possible outcomes for Zebra as a brand. And so I love that process because, again, I think agencies are at their best and internal agencies are at their best when they're both like lockstep with one another trying to create great outcomes for brands.
Yeah, totally. I think there was what was interesting about like our journey together so far has been, I think, and we talked a little bit about this last night at dinner, was just sort of the growth that we've seen, at least within my team. We're about 30 people globally, made up of designers and copywriters and strategists and account, project, production. And there's just this sort of growth. It was sort of like everybody stepped up, and nobody backed down from the moment. I think there were times when I certainly feel like you guys pushed us, which was great. I think there was times that, we kind of pushed back on some things. It challenged us though, and I think ultimately that's sort of how you grow and learn. And that's what I want for my team at the end of the day is like, when you leave my team, you're a better designer, you're a better project manager. And I remember 2 years ago when this first started, and I catch crap for this all the time, but I had a team call and I said, this is going to be really hard. I don't know what's going to happen. I know I'm supposed to stand here and tell you like exactly what's going to happen. I said, we're going to be successful, but it's going to be like really, really hard. And it was all those things. And the crap that I get today is like, when does the hard stop?
Welcome to being involved in
not September 22nd.
Not September 22nd. But the point is like, I think we just got better as a team, and ultimately that serves the brand. People understand. Again, I want people to take ownership of it, and it starts with my team. Like we have to own this. We have to understand it like the back of our hand. So it's you guys probably see this a lot more than obviously we do, but sort of just that growth from a person as well ultimately leads to a better brand, how you govern it, how you protect it, how you create awareness around it, so on and so forth. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, growth on our team too. I think you don't go through projects like this without, and collaboration like this without seeing a tremendous amount of growth. And, you build new arms on the octopus. I think it's always a learning experience. And then, then there's more to look forward to. I love how we were talking about this morning, like, it's kind of the starting line.
Yeah. Rob will say that all the time. Rob will say like, this isn't necessarily the finish line. This is the starting line. Like this is, and I agree. Like this is when the fun starts to happen of like, okay, now let's push this out to market and let's see what kind of change we can drive. That's super impactful and exciting.
Yeah. Speaking of that, what are you excited about?
I would say, the topic of the day is AI. right? I think that is obviously both exciting and terrifying. I probably speak for everybody. Nobody knows what's going to happen, especially from a creative space, from a strategy space. I would say, though, that's exciting. When I try to explain it to my kids, I try to sort of put it in the context of like, do you know what it was like before the internet?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they weren't born, but I tell them not really. But I can tell you things were a lot different. But I can tell you how life was so different before the internet, and I do believe, whether it's right or wrong, I don't know, but I do believe AI is going to have that sort of same effect on the human species. I mean, just in terms of how we ask things and can figure them out faster and create things, and that's exciting. And I think, like I said, it's both exciting and terrifying, and probably everybody falls on probably more of one side than the other, but I think I fall on sort of that's exciting to me. I do like this idea of sort of these moments in time that happen that I think the people that try to understand it and try to get on board with it sooner are the ones that ultimately are rewarded by that. So yeah, we're doing some things around AI. We're looking at how to get better, output, be more efficient, get work into the agency, out of the agency faster. But I think the sky's the limit. It's just right now, it's the technology that sort of limits us. But yeah, I mean, that's in a nutshell. That excites me.
Chris, outside of where we're at, the AI conversation, I would love to kind of land the plane on what gets you excited outside of the work that you're doing kind of vocationally. What are the things that you find energy and excitement in outside of the day-to-day work life?
God, I wish I could give you a really good answer. I if my wife were here, I'd probably defer to her, because I don't know. Over the last 2 years,
you're like, I haven't. I've been all in on this.
It feels that way. Right. It really does feel that way. When I left my previous employer, and the reason why I came to Zebra was that I could sort of own the brand, right? And that in the sense of like governing it, protecting it, creating awareness around it, those types of things. And it's not as if when I came to Zebra, it was about this moment. It was about sort of this rebrand. I'd be lying if I didn't say I thought there was tremendous opportunity there. But when this whole project sort of kicked in 2 years ago, I feel like we've had to be like really all in on it, and we have, and that's sort of why it's been successful. To answer your question, God, I wish I could tell you like, oh yeah, no, there's these different things that I find. I would say family is the most important thing to me. I've got 3 daughters, 12, by the time this comes out, they'll be 12, 16, and 19. They inspire me every single day. They're great kids. I've got a great wife. I've got a great family that supports me going back and forth from Detroit and Chicago constantly. But yeah, I mean, just, surrounding myself with the right people, and it starts with my family, and then it goes out to my second family, which is my team. They inspire me, truly, they do. We've got a number of different people on the team. They're all characters. We have a great culture within the team. I enjoy going to work. I enjoy, as much as painful as it is to sort of leave my family at times, I enjoy going to work and creating. And the last 2 years have just been the best of my career. I can honestly say that. Personally, how much time I've had, not so much. But yeah, I mean, I can look back at this time in my life at some point in the future and say, man, that was a ride. That was awesome.
Awesome. I love that. That's a fun, I think we share very similar perspectives around just, the prioritization of what's most important. And I think family, if it's not, it can be a tough road. But the gift of being able to have families that are supportive, but also that are the priority ultimately is really awesome. Yeah. And I love that. Greg, you want to close us out?
For sure. Well, hopefully there's more golf on the horizon for you. Maybe some surfing tomorrow morning. Hell yeah. Yeah, thanks for everybody for watching. Thanks, Chris, for being on. We're super excited for the rebrand to launch. I'm excited for that story to take place where we see the transition from the biggest brand you may not have heard of to the brand you see everywhere you go. And hopefully frontline workers everywhere start to recognize, hey, this brand is everywhere and it's part of my experience. And I just think the sky's the limit for Zebra, and we're glad to be part of the story.
Totally. Thanks for
being here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks for listening. See you next one.